how to free yourself from worry by letting Jesus take the wheel. Coming up next. We're going to take a look in the Bible at how Elisha left a position of high worry and stress to find his niche in life. To free yourself from worry, you and I need to let Jesus take the wheel. Okay, you know that little song that we hear every now and then. People joke about it. Oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Jesus, take the wheel. Okay, we got to learn how to do that if we're going to free ourselves from worry and stress. Let's take a look. 1 Kings 19 to 21. Elijah was tired. Elijah had served the Lord for many years. Elijah wanted to retire. So God tells Elijah to go and look for his replacement. He needed to find an apprentice to someday take over the profiting business. All right. So he finds a man named Elisha. The Bible tells us that he was plowing behind 12 yoke of oxen. A yoke means 2 oxen tied up together. There are a lot of oxen. This tells us that this man was rich. He was wealthy. He was powerful. He was a landowner. He was probably the number 1 son, the inheritor of all his father's estate. And he was taking care of it all. And he was managing behind 24 oxen. Elisha was a man accustomed to control. He was in control at the time, and he was in control of his family's estate. Elijah comes up to him, doesn't say too much, if anything, places his mantle, his cloak, upon Elisha and walks off. Elisha knows exactly what he means. He runs after Elijah and says, whoa, slow your roll, player. Let me at least go tell my mother and father goodbye. Elijah answers in a very unique way. He says, do whatever you want, bro. What is it to me? Interesting. Elisha then goes and has a huge barbecue. That's right. He takes the yoke made out of wood that held the 2 last pair of oxen. He chopped it up. He built a fire and he cooked those 2 oxen. He invited the community to come over and have an all-you-can-eat. In my mind, they had a great barbecue. Now, I don't know if they boiled the meat or they braised the meat, roasted the meat, or they barbecued it, but I like barbecue. Okay, what can we learn? Number 1, Elisha was a man most likely accustomed to great authority, accustomed to power, accustomed to calling the shots. And what Elijah was asking him to do was to relinquish that control and come and be his servant. This is, I think, very significant. We all want the higher positions of leadership, the higher positions of power, the higher positions of influence. We admire and we like to be in control. Elisha had to do the opposite. Elijah was not asking him to take a promotion with more pay. He was asking Elisha to be his servant, to go from boss to student again. Elisha was not a kid, and to go from that high position to such a lowly, humble position was a huge step down. Elisha had to relinquish control, influence, prestige, honor. Elisha had to be released from his previous commitments. He had to kiss goodbye to his mom and dad. Elijah was asking him to take on a completely different life. No longer was he a civilian with freedom and the power to choose. No, he even had to leave his own family, his own estate, his own position of influence and honor to follow after Elijah. This reminds me of the concept of living for the audience of one. When we talk about the audience of one, I suppose some people take it and they turn it on its head and say, oh, well, I just please myself. No, really, the term audience of one talks about simplifying your life to please God. How many directions do we feel torn today? How many directions do we feel that we have to go today? There are all kinds of people we have to please. The kids, the wife, the spouse, the boss, the neighbors, our friends. Jesus talks about this. No one can serve even two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. Now, relatively speaking, right? If you choose one over the other, in the Hebrew mindset, this was like hate. For you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You will either be a servant of God or you will be enslaved to money. Oh, it's seductive. It's addictive. The power of the love of money and greed will claim you, will take over your mind, your thoughts, your heart. Jesus says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And he says, you got to make up your mind. Who you're going to serve? Either God or money. Elisha had to determine for himself who he was going to serve. His mom and dad, the expectations of his neighbors, himself, his own desires and needs for significance and pleasure, or was he going to accept this call? Elisha's new commander, you see, was God. His audience of one was God, and he knew his life was to be lived in dedication to God alone. And thus, his allegiance, you see, was complete. What that man did, like I said, was to take those oxen. He ate them with all the other villagers. Why did he do that? I think he did that to burn his bridges behind him. You see, he made it a point of personal pride, of declaration in front of his community to tell all his friends and neighbors, this is where I'm going, and there's no turning back. He embraced his new calling as a servant, not as the master, not as the boss, but to be a student, a servant of Elijah. As a servant, our eyes need to be focused. Our attention needs to be directed upon our master, not managing the multitude of our mess, right? We talk a lot about controlled chaos. And oftentimes when we live for ourselves and we are torn and drawn and pulled in so many different directions, it is controlled chaos. But we need to think about simplifying our lives and pleasing God and God alone. Psalm 145 says that the eyes of all look to you in hope. You give them their food as they need it. do we look to God as our sole provider? There's could be a little pun there, right? Our soul, our SOLE, not fish, but soul as the only. But we can also spell soul SOUL. Get it? God is our soul, our solitary, our only provider, but he is also our souls, SOUL, our souls provider. Is he your provider today? Is he my provider? Or am I usurping his authority? Am I pulling my life back? Am I saying, well, maybe I was too hasty. Maybe in this area, I want control. But as the kids say, no givesies backsies, right? We need to be like Elisha and burn our bridges behind us. We keep looking to the Lord our God for his mercy, just as servants keep their eyes on their master, as a slave girl watches her mistress for the slightest signal. This reminds me of a waiter or waitress in a very high class restaurant. They're going to watch you anticipate your needs. They're going to refill your water. They're going to ask you if you need anything. They're going to be very attentive. It reminds me of something that happened to me just a couple of days ago. I went out to the park and I was there walking by myself and feeling, I'll be honest with you, a little sorry for myself after my devastating stroke. It's painful. I have hip problems and foot problems, and it takes a lot of effort. And I was there alone thinking, oh, I miss my family. And I noticed a man and his son. They walked and walked and walked. They went a long ways. They finally stopped under a tree. About that time, I looked to my left and noticed a black lab. It was crouched and attentive. It looked like it was stalking some prey. For a minute there, in my condition, I got a little nervous. I thought, good thing it's not a pit bull. Good thing it's not a Rottweiler. I didn't know if it was licking its chops, wanting to attack me. But it wasn't looking at me. It was looking out. And finally, I began to understand that black lab, all tensed, all ready to go, was looking at the man and his son. Suddenly, there was the faintest whistle. It was a dog whistle. It came from the man, and that lab sprung into action. It tore through that grass and ran faster than I've ever seen a dog run. It ran to that man and reported for duty. And that dog was a good dog. That reminds me of this. That dog, all of its attention was riveted on that man for the slightest signal. That little tweet on that dog whistle, so hard to hear from my frail human ears, was picked up by that dog. That dog responded immediately to his master's command. That is a picture of freedom. You see, that dog was free from all other distractions, just as Elisha would be free from all other distractions. He wouldn't have to please his mom. He wouldn't have to please his dad. He wouldn't have to get water for all 24 of his oxen. He wouldn't have to feed them. He wouldn't have to shovel their manure. He wouldn't have to worry about what the Goldbergs were thinking or their gossip. No, He freed himself to focus on pleasing God alone by being Elijah's servant. Jesus says in Matthew 11:28, come unto me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, Jesus says, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Oh, my friend, are you weary? Are you burdened? Listen to the voice of the Lord Jesus when he says, come to me, and I will give you rest. It's not that Jesus doesn't give us anything to do. No, he exchanges our burden, our heavy load, for his yoke. He is the lead ox. He is the one that does the major amount of pulling. He is the one with the strength and experience. And he says, take my yoke upon you. I will carry the heavy part of the burden. Learn from me. Take your position as learner, for I am gentle. I'm not a harsh taskmaster. You won't feel the sting of the whip on your back. I am gentle. I'm humble in heart. And you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. When we seek to be in control, our burdens get overwhelmingly heavy. You see, we weren't meant to be in control. No, we were meant to be servants, children, sheep of his pasture. He is our shepherd. He is our champion. He will keep us safe from the wolves, the bears, the lions. Oh my, he will provide us with the green pastures and the still waters. He will prepare the great banquet feast in the presence of our enemies. He will cause our cup to run over. His goodness and mercy will follow us all the days of our lives, and we will dwell in his house forevermore. Pleasures, provision, and peace are ours when we find them in Jesus.